Hey, world. Being Willie. Back in the garden live again, family. Here live tonight, family, in the garden. Hope everybody had a great day. But if you're in the garden tonight, then you're going to get a little history, get a historical analysis of today and what Thanksgiving was all about and its origin. So you have a better understanding. Because sometimes, history can be so glamorized, but then there's a other story. Okay, so you have history, and then you have his story. And so I just want to kind of give a brief synopsis, family, of the historical facts about Thanksgiving and when it originated and how this particular name even came about. Chin, what it do, brother? It's a great day. All right. But just real quickly, fam, just for a quick historical analysis, especially my younger audience, this isn't to dampen spirits, but it's to educate and to have you have a better perspective about certain things that happened historically and how these things that happened historically, are pretty much celebrated every year, but we need to have a better understanding, like a realistic understanding, okay? Well, first, let me just start by saying thank you for joining me in the garden. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification button so you know when I'm dropping another video. I would love to hear you guys drop comments as well, good or bad. It's all love, okay? Well, like I said, I just want to start right now by saying, family, Thanksgiving started in 1621, all right? Actually, that was the first particular Thanksgiving as we know it, where there was actual a feast between, or amongst rather, the indigenous people and the pilgrims at that time. But the reason why it's such a ambiguous story, because we told that the pilgrims pretty much started the Thanksgiving holiday, and they helped the Native Americans, or the Native Americans helped the pilgrims. It kind of came up, it was like this one positive situation, right? But we got to understand that it wasn't as positive as we think, because remember, a lot of the half of the pilgrims, I think it was like 105 of them that came over, half of them died. Okay. And of course, there were more, natives, the Wampanoag tribe than the pilgrims. So this whole big feast that happened in 1621 was mainly a feast where it included mostly the Wampanoag tribe and then half of the pilgrims that was there. So you would think after that particular 1621 feast, that every year after that, that's what have happened, right? But that wasn't the original Thanksgiving. The original Thanksgiving, family, actually occurred after 1637. A cat by the name of William Bradford, who was the governor of the Puritans or the Pilgrims at that time. Well, unfortunately, if looking back, you can actually use your common sense and say, oh, hold up. This was the ulterior motive the whole time, was to, believe me, the Puritans and the Pilgrims did not come over here to just live on land and not prosper. Okay, this was the new world. This was the new land. And so, of course, there are a lot of wars between the colonizers and the natives, particularly the Pilgrims and Puritans versus the Wampanoag tribe. And it was so unfortunate because a lot of, you hear about the diseases that killed off a lot of the natives and that killed off some of the pilgrims. But you got to understand, these diseases that killed them was actually caused by rats brought over on those ships with the Europeans. Okay. The Native Americans had never experienced any type of diseases or sicknesses like that. You did? Minnesota in the house, DG, right? And so I just kind of want to dispel this notion that, you know, Thanksgiving was this great feast among, you know, the Pilgrims and the natives. And I hate to just call them natives or indigenous people. They were called the Wampanoag. They were the Wampanoag tribe. Okay. And unfortunately, in 1637, you know, that's when everything kind of went haywire. And the only reason I say that because that's when actually 500 Wampanoag women, men, and children were killed by the Pilgrims and the Puritans. And shortly after that, that's when William Bradford, who was the governor of the Pilgrims at that time, said that every governor after this particular event, will actually be celebrating what they call Thanksgiving. Okay, because it actually says right here, friend. Because I don't want to speculate. I want you guys to know this is actual information. It says right here, family, in 1637. Okay, there were 500 men, women, and children killed, and villages were burned down because there was a allegation of a white man being killed by someone from the Wampanoag tribe. And in retaliation, 500 women, men, and children were killed. Villages were burned down. Okay. And shortly after that, William Bradford, who was the governor of the Plymouth, wrote that for the next 100 years, every Thanksgiving day ordained by a governor was in honor of the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had won, that we defeated the Wampanoags. Now, this was just 16 years after the first feast. See, Thanksgiving wasn't the feast with the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims. No, that wasn't Thanksgiving. That was we as natives or the Wampanoag tribe is going to help you guys, because you're dead, you're dying off, you can't, you don't know the land, so we're helping you. And so when we feast together, they were thinking that it was going to be, an alliance between those that come over from overseas and the Wampanoag tribe, but it didn't happen that way. Kind of similar to every other colonized situation in the world. But I can tell you, some youngsters that have any type of historical background know or heard about what they call the Trail of Tears. And the Trail of Tears was when they actually moved all the Native Americans from the southeast port of the United States west of the Mississippi River, where thousands died. All right. And they don't really talk about that. But, when you talk about a group of people that were pretty much slaughtered, that's not considered a Holocaust. And I hate to dampen your spirits, family, but like I said, this is the Red Pill channel. If you're in the garden, then we got to keep it 1,000. All right. Thanksgiving isn't what you think. If you want a historical analysis about what Thanksgiving is about, then you're in the right place. Okay. We're talking dates. 1621 was the first feast, but 1637 was the first massacre. And after that massacre in 1637 is when every year after that, it was a Thanksgiving feast honoring the massacre of the Wampanoag tribe. Okay. So I just kind of want to come back, family, give you a quick historical analysis of this thing called Thanksgiving and have you understand that it's not the holiday itself that you should be thankful for. It's family and friends. Okay. Family and friends and getting together and loving each other. That's the true Thanksgiving. This Thanksgiving holiday, that's not what that's about. Okay, so we talk about the Pilgrims and the Indians. Remember, India is east of us, so we know they want to call Indians. You dig? All right. So thanks for joining, family. You just joining me. Like I said, I'm just giving you a brief synopsis of the true nature and history of Thanksgiving. Because remember, we have a huge group of people that's still in America that's very offended today. You dig? So we want to come back and give you a quick brief history lesson on that right there. Nephew, what it do? All right. Oh man, you brought up a Black Wall Street. Yeah. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Me and my dad were just talking about that. And if you don't know what that is, guys, Black Wall Street was when they massacred, actually when they burned down in Tulsa, Oklahoma back in 1921. You know, they burned down all of the African American businesses, actually killed a lot of women, children, and men, and took a lot of the resources from them. The U.S. government didn't do anything about it. No one even talks about that. You did. So yeah, that was a bad, that was a black eye in the history of the United States with the Black Wall Street. That was 1921. Okay, so and it's important that we just kind of know the real history of things that's going on. You did. I mean, it's something that this particular day, like Dollar Bill said, this particular day is a day of mourning for a lot of people. Okay, but I think it's also a day that we need to reflect and actually understand the true meaning and understand the true deception and lies. All right, and if you've seen the title says, I talk about Thanksgiving, but I also talk about the hidden taxes in plain sight. And before I get out of here, I just wanted to, and you guys will all be able to agree with me. How many of you guys, if you have a car, every year have to go get your inspection, registration, get your driver's license renewed when it's supposed to be renewed? Those are taxes, family. You know what I'm talking about? They call them registration and inspection, but those are actual taxes. Okay, so let's look at this for a minute. You have your federal income tax that you have to pay from your wages twice, because at the end of the year when you file taxes, you're going to pay that twice. You have sales taxes, state taxes. Okay, if you own a home, property taxes, right? And then you have the hidden taxes, which is the registration, inspection, driver's license renewal. Family, those are all taxes. Deborah, what's going on? All right, those are all taxes. And so this illusion of freedom is basically what that is, an illusion. We have privileges, family. If you don't know about the difference between freedom and privileges, try to leave the country without a passport. Okay? Try to go to another state and not follow the rules of that particular state. You know, we only have privileges. You're not free. It's just illusion of freedom. You have privileges, all right? And so tomorrow, when they say it's Black Friday, pay yourself first, family. Don't fall for it. Dollar Bill, no doubt. But you know, you say for the Native Americans, so funny because, like I said, I don't know if you guys have heard of a cat by the name of Dane Calloway. He actually has a whole podcast. He has a lot of content about who the Native Americans really are. Okay. And the only reason I even kind of subscribe to that notion, not that I say I'm Native American, but there are some questions. There are some questions. And the reason why I say there are some questions is when you have so many millions of people that supposedly or allegedly was brought over here on ships, where are they? You dig? Man, that's a tough one right there. That's a tough one right there now. Yeah, that's a tough one right there. Was the real Black Friday when the slave was sold at half price? Well, I mean, if you talk about Black Friday, you talk about stocks and talk about slavery, I would basically just say this: we all are slaves. Okay, they just changed the name from slaves to employees, and there are different levels. If you don't believe me, if you don't have a job, how would you survive? If you don't work, you don't eat. You dig? So it's unfortunate, but we are all slaves in this particular capitalistic system, but you do have the knowledge to live a better life. Remember, as long as you got a social security number, a birth certificate, you are what they call property of the United States Corporation. So you can work for the corporations, right? You can try to gain other wealth by investing, but that's it. All right. The history of America is built off of the haves and the have-nots. And when you think about, like I say, this whole Thanksgiving thing, you know, who are the haves and who are the have-nots in that particular situation? And who backed them? Remember, we try to say like the Pilgrims and the Puritans, like the Pilgrims, decimated the Wampanoag tribe, or but they couldn't do that without weapons. Where they get the weapons from? Where they get the backing from? From Europe, from England. So we have to make sure that when we talk about Pilgrims and Puritans, let's go back to its original origin. Those are Europeans, colonizers. We minimize it by saying Pilgrims and Puritans, right? Because that puts a religious connotation on it. It kind of takes the stigma off of it. but they were actually colonizers. Simple as that. And if you look at what happened in America, you look at what happened in Australia, you look at what happened in Africa, you look what happened in South America, look what happened in Mexico, look what happened, in Canada, right? And then in Africa right now, we got present day colonization going on right now. I mean, France right now owns pretty much 14 countries in Africa. It's only 55 countries in Africa. France pretty much owns 14 of them. Well, why do you say that, Bean? Well, there's 14 countries in Africa whose monies are all in the French National Bank, French Central Bank, and they don't have access to it. They all under something called the Western franc. Okay, you have 8 African countries under the Western franc. You have 6 African countries under the Central franc, and this is all monies that are in the French Central Bank. So we have all these African countries that they do not have access to their own money. That's present day colonizing. And then you look at China, what China is doing in Africa, coming up, building all the infrastructure, dropping billions and billions of dollars into Africa. They're not doing it for free. They're going to overcharge Africa in mad interest. They're going to build all the infrastructure, right? But guess what? If you know what's going on, basically right now in Kenya, China is building all those infrastructure, building all of the bridges. They're building a lot of companies. They're bringing a lot of business to Kenya, but they're not hiring the Kenyans. They bring their own workers over there to build, to get paid. But then once everything is established and constructed, they're going to have the Kenyans have to buy the stuff over there for a higher price. Instead of hiring the Kenyans to help build the infrastructure and be a part of the growth, they're just coming over there and just colonizing. If you don't believe me, do your research, family. And it's just a bad situation, fam. So, like Humi said, Black Friday. Black Friday? Come on, man. So, I just want to come back real quick, man. Like I said, I'm not gonna take much of your time. I know it's a day you with your family and whatnot, but being want to come in here and drop a little knowledge about the true history of Thanksgiving. Remember, the Wampanoag tribe was decimated. And then after that, there were over 1,500 other wars between the Europeans and the indigenous people. Several peace treaties or treaties that were drawn up that were broken. And then, of course, the Trail of Tears. All right. So yes, this is a day of celebration for a lot of people who's on the blue pill. But if you're taking the red pill, then you know that right now this isn't a day of celebration. Only when you're with your family, right? Take the holiday connotation out of it. But when you talk about that, then make sure you think about the true history of Thanksgiving. Hey, dollar bill, how can America be discovered when people are already here? Hey, we still celebrate Columbus Day. They want to say there's a complete shift of what they call brainwashing the public into, generationally believing this stuff. And like I say, my old saying is, you get people to believe absurdities, they'll commit the worst atrocities. So this is something that I think, with this change, with this shift, in the what we're going on right now, there's a shift in consciousness. We went from Father the Zodiac, we actually going into what they call the Aquarius stage, where we rinsing out all of this madness. And there are a lot more people becoming conscious, a lot more people, that being conscious of the red pill and a lot of the things that are going on. You're not just a human. You're becoming a why man, because you're asking why. And the more times you ask why, and I promise you, it's not something that is mainstream. Okay, you're not gonna be able to talk to a lot of people about certain things because there are so many people that are still cognitively dissonant and still riding that wave of the matrix. All right. So if I just want to come back with a little information, there are a lot of taxes that are out there that are hidden taxes that they don't call taxes. Registration, car registration, inspections, driver license renewals, passports. Those are all taxes, family. All right. So like I always say, pay yourself first and get yourself ready for this crash. Because remember, it's going to crash. And when it crashes, you want to make yourself ready for it. All right. G. Marie, appreciate you being in the garden. And like I said, fella, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, between time, may the Most High inside bring you joy. And being with us out of 5,000. DG, Dollar Bill, G. Maria, Nephew, Deborah, Chim. Thanks for joining me, family. And being with us out of 5,000.